Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
But now I'm utterly delighted to be joined by Labour's Foreign Affairs spokesperson, Shadow Foreign Secretary Emily Thornberry. Lovely to see you. Now, I want to talk in a minute or two about the economic policy laid out by John McDonnell this morning, in particular your tax plans. But let's just start with what Tom said. Yeah. Inevitable that Labour's going to lose and lose badly.
No. Oh, no. Not a single vote has been cast yet in the general election. We have everything to fight for, and we have to get out there and make a positive case. The one thing that strikes me about this election so far is that we have a ruling party that has no positive vision, that has no idea of what it is that they want to do with the country. It's just all about Theresa May and some kind of presidential thing going on. It's all about Theresa. She's in the papers and so on. She's on all the posters. What we need to be doing is we need to be putting out a positive case saying it does not have to be this way. There is an alternative. Things do not need to be this hard, and we have the ideas necessary to make this country better.
We'll come back to the virtues of the two campaigns and the two leaders in a minute, but I do now want to talk about your tax plans, just unveiled. Yeah. John McDonnell says there will be, he says, a modest tax rise for those earning over £80,000. What's the magic of £80,000?
Well, let's start with the most important part of this, which is that 95% of the country will not get their income tax risen.
Still 2 million people will see rises in income tax.
Yeah, but 95% of the country won't. And we have not had, most people in this country have not seen their wages go up in the last who knows how long. And when I talk to people on the doorstep, they are having real difficulties making ends meet.
But people will still want to know how you chose £80,000 as the threshold. I mean, just to be clear, it's possible for senior nurses to earn that, senior police, people in the health service. You know, for some people, and particularly in London, as you know, as somebody who lives in London, £80,000 is not a colossal sum of money. So how did you decide that 80,000 was the right threshold?
So whilst some senior nurses may be earning over that amount, some nurses are going to food banks. I mean, it is a question of getting these things adjusted properly and asking those who have the broadest shoulders to help. You know, at a time like this, and whether you have a high income or not, your child may break their arm and may end up waiting in A&E for 5 or 6 hours before being seen. We have to make sure that we invest some money into our public services and kickstart our economy.
I mean, people will notice that MPs will not be caught by the tax rise. Does that mean, you know, MPs are not on big salaries?
Well, I mean, MPs' salaries may be one thing, but obviously MPs who have a parliamentary salary that, you know, because they have some sort of government job as well will be. Those who have other incomes may be. You know, I mean, some MPs will and some MPs won't.
But those who simply do the job will not be caught by it.
On the whole, not. No, on the whole, not. And you asked me about London, and you asked me about, cost
of living in London
being
much
more
higher than
expensive.
elsewhere.
Absolutely. I mean,
people on 80,000 in London find it difficult to buy a house.
But the average income, even in the richer areas of London, is only 30,000. I mean, we do have to remember that, you know, many people on 70,000 do not necessarily feel themselves to be rich. But the truth is that average incomes are 26,000. And the truth is that those people going into this election need to have the reassurance that their personal taxation will not go up under a Labour government.
And just to be clear, you can absolutely guarantee that, for example, you're not going to reduce tax relief on pensions for those people.
The details will come out in the manifesto, but the things that we can say clearly today is VAT will not go up, and that will apply to everyone. Personal taxation for low and middle income earners will not go up. You know, these things are important.
Lots of governments,
and national insurance,
and particularly this current government has reduced tax relief for people putting money into pensions. There is still, many people would say, a lot more that could be raised from that source. Do you think Labour would do that?
I think you have to wait for the manifesto, and I think you would. But you know, today, I think people need to be clear that their income tax is not going to go up. 95% of people's income tax will not go up under a Labour government.
And can I just ask one?
Sorry. And you know, you hear the Tories all the time. You know, like, for example, we have the Tory health minister on later on today saying that he was going to do something about mental health. When they put forward policies, you should ask them as well, where is the money coming from? We are being much clearer, in my view, as to what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how it's going to be paid for. You are getting, you know, a rollout of our policies in advance of our manifesto, but the details will be in the manifesto.
And can I just very briefly, because we've got to go to a break in a second, but we'll hear more from you in a second. How much will you raise from this?
I don't know. I mean, you'll need to ask John McDonnell about that. I'm not going to get into all of that.
Emily Thornberry is somehow avoiding deselection in the last couple of minutes, and you're still with me, which is fantastic news. Jeremy Corbyn, I talk to lots of Labour MPs, and they say when they bang on doors, all they hear is, we can't vote for him, and that's why we're switching to Theresa May. That's a huge problem for you.
I think it takes it back to what I was saying before the break, which is politics ought to be about policies. It ought to be about the way in which politicians can change people's lives. This is an election where the people give us...
But your policies are not cutting through because they don't like Jeremy. So what do you do about that?
But this is an election where the people give us power. We get our power from people who decide who it is that they want to give power to and why. And it is about what are we going to do with that power when we're given it. When we close our eyes, who are we thinking about? Are we thinking about the 95% or are we thinking about the 5%, you know, who may well be kind of, you know, getting upset about what the level of tax will be and all the rest of it? You know, the way in which the Sunday Times, for example, this morning has written that piece all about the 5% and not about the 95%. We need to be talking about, you know, the policies that we can put forward that look after... Sorry, I don't want to use the phrase, but you look after the many and not the few. I mean, that's the difference in terms of politics, and we need to be talking about that.
However good or bad your policies, they're irrelevant if people are saying we don't trust your leader.
Well, our leader is a good and genuine man. He talks like people talk.
And how do you get that across to people?
Well, one way would have been if Theresa May, who says that this election is all about her, had the guts to get onto television and debate with him.
But we know that's not going to happen, so what are you going to do about it? I mean,
why not? But why not? You know, why not? What is she afraid of? You know, what is she afraid of? You know, if he's supposed to be such a weak leader, then why doesn't she debate with him? You know, the reason is because he's genuine, because he talks like people talk, and his preoccupations are the preoccupations of ordinary people. And Theresa May doesn't get out enough to be able to understand what the preoccupations of ordinary people are. She needs to start listening to people in the hospitals. How long have you waited in A&E before getting into this hospital? Are you going to a food bank, this nurse? How are you making ends meet? Why doesn't she find out what real people think?
But you're not telling us, which is, I think, what people really want to hear, which is how can you cut through if people don't like your leader?
We cut through because we are 600,000 people, because we are out on the doorstep and we talk to people, and it is people talking to people about what changes their lives. This afternoon, I'm out in Hammersmith, I'm talking to people in Hammersmith. Next week, we're going all over the country and we talk to people and we say, what is your problem now, and how are we going to deal with it?
It's very striking that your leader is not venturing into Tory seats in the way that Theresa May is spending all her time in Labour seats. He appears to be focusing solely on shoring up your core vote, which seems to indicate that he doesn't believe you can win.
Well, didn't he? I think the first visit he made after the general election was called was in Croydon, wasn't it?
Yeah, but there's a tiny Tory majority, whereas she's venturing into seats where there are huge Labour majorities.
There are a number of seats that have tiny majorities, and we're definitely targeting those, as we are targeting others.
But I do have to put this to you, because
I've been to a number of seats, you know, that are Tory Labour marginals, and many of the front bench have.
But look, I've got to put this to you, because one of the things that I found profoundly shocking after your results in the local elections was talking to your MPs, and they told me that their strategy to win in their constituencies is simply not to talk about Jeremy Corbyn. It's a disaster for you.
People vote for united parties. We have to be a united party, and we have to be focused on winning the election and how we can transform Britain, and how we are a party of hope, and how we are a party that shows that it does not have to be like this. Brexit does not need to be a disaster. We need to have a good, strong Brexit that works on behalf of Britain. We need to make sure that we reset our relationships with the European Union, and we need to make sure that those with the broadest shoulders are helping to restart our economy and putting money into our public services because they desperately need it. There is The alternative that the government is offering is nothing. They are simply offering a presidential election, and people should not be fooled.
But all they say they care about is that he should stand down after you lose. What do you say to them if that's the message they're putting out?
No, what we're putting out is that we are the alternative government. There is a choice, and there will either be a Conservative government or a Labour government, and people need to focus on that, and not a single vote has been cast yet. And we will win this if we win it. We will win it on the basis of our policies and the fact that we have been able to get over our message on the doorstep, showing people that it does not need to be this way. There is no alternative vision that the Tories are offering, and it is not good enough for people to simply say, I like Theresa May's hair, or I like that shade of blue. You know, politics is not about that. Politics is about how you change people's lives and being able to put forward a platform that makes sense and is a clear alternative. And that we have to do in a unified and focused way, and that's what I'm going to be doing, and I'm quite sure that's what other Labour MPs and indeed our 600,000 members are going to be doing in the conversations we're having with the public in the next few weeks. It's all to play for.
And obviously we on this programme are all about the issues, and we hope to have you back before that election to talk some more about all of that. So I'm delighted now to go back and talk to Michael Gove, Tom Baldwin, about what we just heard from Shadow Foreign Secretary Emily Thornberry. Tom, is it a sensible thing for John McDonnell to announce that those earning 80,000 or more will pay some more tax?
Well, look, Britain is an under-taxed economy. We have public services which are on their knees, and they do need extra funding. I'm not sure this is the kind of policy you'd put forward if you were looking to win the general election and make strides into Middle England. It's the kind of policy you'd put forward now when you're looking to shore up your core vote. We can just pick up on something that Emily just said. She said she wanted to fight this election on the issues. She's Shadow Foreign Secretary. The words Brexit didn't pass her lips once in that interview. I mean she wasn't asked about it, but she thinks the issues in this election matter. Then she should be trying to get this election back onto Brexit, and whether we want to give Theresa May a blank cheque in this election and a mandate for a Brexit which she won't understand or won't explain.
But many would say, actually, it's pretty hard for Emily Thornberry to talk about Brexit because Labour's policy, I think still your policy, is so unclear on Brexit.
It's unclear. It's better than what Michael would offer, but it is unclear. It's full of caveats and nuances, and Labour don't want to talk about it. They want to change the subject. I think the alternative to this election being one about Jeremy Corbyn versus Theresa May is to make it about Brexit, and I know what I prefer.
Now, I'm going to pick up with you in just a second, Michael, but let's just go and have a quick word with Anushka.
Thanks, Robert. Well, it has been a bad set of election results for Jeremy Corbyn, but he insists he can turn things around in just over 4 weeks. We've seen some radical policy, and we are told there will be a bit more of the personal touch, something a little more revealing. John McDonnell, the Shadow Chancellor, says the more people see of him, the more they will see that this is a leader that they want. Ian Lavery, elections coordinator, agrees the more Jeremy gets out there, the more people will warm to him. And ta-da, there he is, and our guest, Emily Thornberry, who says the more that people see this man who says what he means, the more people will be attracted to him. But even a close ally of Corbyn has said this weekend he can be Marmite on the doorstep, and there is certainly a sense of that love-hate thing in, if I can show you, this YouGov. OK, well, it was basically a poll that shows that people who don't like Jeremy think that he is unelectable, and they also say he is left-wing. He probably won't mind that. And people who do like him say that he is honest and sticking up for ordinary people. The problem for Labour is that people aren't necessarily looking for personality. According to the pollsters, they want strength, and the Conservatives believe that their leader is seen as, you guessed it, strong and stable, which explains this strategy, the Theresa strategy. And there she is again, being strong and stable in Hampstead and Kilburn. Although I think we should take note of one thing. The word Conservatives seems to have been consigned to the small print. Robert.
It is jolly interesting, isn't it, Michael, that, you know, this is a campaign being run on the supposed virtues of the leader and not really on the virtues of the Tory party. But I do want to pick up, though, on this tax issue. It is very, very striking that John McDonnell has said today that 95% of people in this country will pay no more tax. And the Tory party hasn't made that commitment.
No. I think that one of the most important things about what John McDonnell has spelled out, as you brought out in your questioning, is that this tax hike, if it were ever to come about, would hit people, for example, like head teachers in schools. It would hit general practitioners. It would hit people in public service. And it's also the case that we know that this would be just the bridgehead from which further tax increases would inevitably follow.
Actually, to be clear, we don't know that, but just to be clear, you're basically saying somebody on £80,000 isn't wealthy, isn't rich.
Well, I think that there are different circumstances. Of course, it's above average income, but I don't think that we can say that school teachers and you know, the heads of our secondary schools, or that GPs are rich. No.
But we have a public service crisis there. At the NHS, chronically short of cash.
Yes.
Schools, chronically short of cash. Where's the money going to come from, Michael?
The critical thing, I mean, Emily put up a, you know, a very good fight, but she couldn't say how much money this would raise. In fact, it may well depress, actually, the tax take. The point about taxation is that you want to design a tax system in order to maximise the amount of money that you can spend on public services. And there comes a point where if you raise tax rates or target particular sections of the population, you depress economic activity, drive people out of the country, reduce enterprise, and as a result, the economy goes backwards and not forwards. And there is every risk. If you have a shadow chancellor...
We know that whoever wins the election, taxes are going up. Isn't it better to be told in advance what those taxes are?
Well, we're going to have a manifesto launch from the Conservatives, I think, in just over a week's time. We'll see then what the approach is that the Chancellor of the Exchequer and the Prime Minister want to take. But whichever taxes you choose to alter, increasing income tax in this way sends a very powerful signal that the Labour Party is anti-enterprise and anti-growth. Additionally, the Shadow Chancellor was on the BBC on a not very much watched programme earlier today. And on that programme, he was quoting Marx and Das Kapital and saying that there was a great deal of truth in what Marx had said in the past. That seems to me to be a leading indicator of the type of economic strategy that he'd love to implement if by some mischance he were ever to find himself in the Treasury.
And I'm more than happy to say he was on Andrew Marr a few minutes ago. Now, Tom, what about this point that people like Emily and John McDonnell have been saying, which is that people would love Jeremy Corbyn if only they saw more of him?
I think they've seen quite enough of him already, and anything to which the answer is more Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell is probably a case of asking the wrong question. I just want to say...
What's the right question, Tom?
How do we stop Theresa May getting a blank cheque for a hard Brexit to which she won't explain?
Hang on a second, but let's be clear. John McDonnell is the Shadow Chancellor. Jeremy Corbyn is the leader. The fact is that people like you and lots of Labour MPs are currently being so disloyal to him. How do you stop Theresa May getting a blank cheque if you're not prepared to rally round Jeremy Corbyn?
Well, I would like to say you can vote for your local candidate. Unfortunately, in my case, my local candidate is Jeremy Corbyn. So I'm going to vote Labour to ensure that there's a decent opposition to Theresa May after the election, and there's something left to inherit.